A presentation of In Goal Magazine. This is In Goal Radio, the podcast, presented by the Hockey Shop Source for Sports. I'm Darren Millard, along with the co-founders of In Goal Magazine, Kevin Woodley and David Hutchison. Welcome to episode 7, gentlemen. The first that we have a presenting sponsor, a title sponsor. Kevin Woodley, take us through what just happened between episodes 6 and 7.
Well, basically, we got together with the Hockey Shop Source for Sports in Surrey, which is, it's kind of close to me. These guys are in my backyard, so it's a store that I've gotten to know quite well. It's the place you go to get your skates sharp. We talked about that, how everybody has a guy that they trust and nobody else can do their skates. Cecil at the Hockey Shop is the guy that everyone in Vancouver trusts. People come from a long ways away, buy multiple sets of blades just so they can get him to do them all and then swap them out and not have to, even if they have to travel, not have to come back for a while. They've got a goalie section in the basement that is an entire floor of the building. It's loaded. All the guys there, I think what I like the best is when I started playing goal, they have experts there. They have all guys who actually play the position, not just a bunch of high school kids in a big store that really know nothing about it. So real passionate. They know the position. They're loaded with all the stuff. And I guess the big thing as a sponsor is they're local, so that's not going to help people from outside of the Vancouver area, but the hockeyshop.com can. It's that time of year where all the new gear is about to drop. CCM's eFlex 4 lineup just came out last week. We've got some photos up on social media at Ingoal. Hockey Shop's already had it on the ice, already has a full overview online at thehockeyshop.com. It's not on the shelves for another couple of months. The good news is that means you can save on eFlex 3. So we're going to go over that later in the show. We're going to go over the differences between eFlex 4 and some of the highlights with the guys from the Hockey Shop, but also some of the deals you can get right now on eFlex 3 if you're not quite ready to buck up for the brand new eFlex 4.
And part of the relationship with the Hockey Shop Source for Sports is there's a new segment that we'll be implementing today, and that's going to be a weekly gear segment.
That's right. And the beauty is, so we'll talk to their experts because, again, that's what I love about them. Whether you're shopping online, doing a custom order, or phoning in, you're always talking to a goalie. You never have to worry about not talking to somebody who knows. And Cam, who we'll talk to today, he goes to, he's been to the Lefebvre factory in Montreal. He goes to Bauer World. He's invited to all these things, so he knows what's going on behind the scenes with all the different brands. And he's the guy, who quite often will be the one helping you if you do an order. So we'll walk through the latest in the gear, but it's not just going to be talking to them. We're going to bring in NHL voices. Talk to Marek Mazanek. I talked to Pekka Rinne about Speedskin and the difference it's made in their game at the NHL level. So we'll incorporate sort of new gear tips, latest in gear. We'll talk to the guys at the Hockey Shop in that segment, but we'll also bring in NHL and pro voices about how they like their setup and why.
Hutch, this little podcast growing up a little bit.
It sure is. It's fun that it's happening so fast too. It's just been great to see the responses online from everybody. We had a little bit of a hiccup, as we know, last week because everybody got busy with the trade deadline and Hockey Canada requirements and things like that. So it was nice to see that people were reaching out, wondering when that next episode was coming, and fantastic to have the Hockey Shop Source for Sports on board now to help us grow this.
The gear segment has always been something that the three of us have wanted to make happen, so the timing is right, and we'll debut that in this podcast in episode 7. We also have a conversation with New York Islander goaltender Robin Lehner coming up. The angle there is a little bit about angles and how much he's learned in his time on the island. We'll also catch up with one of hockey's most enjoyable personalities. And I say enjoyable because some people will jump on, and I just want to preface this, some people will jump on and go, well, obviously it's an enjoyable personality, but there can be bad personalities, there can be controversial personalities. This guy's just an enjoyable personality. Eddie the Stork. We asked for him to come on after he asked to come on. That's basically how this happened. But Eddie Lack is going to stop by in just a little bit. And we'll also chat a little bit about Vezina Trophy candidates and who's in the mix as we head down this stretch drive of the National Hockey League season. So we have gear, we have a goaltender in the middle of rehab from hip surgery, and we have a Vezina Trophy candidate. Here is Robin Lehner of the New York Islanders talking about his team that's contending for a division title, chatting about, and I paraphrase here, goaltenders and cattle. And I mean that we all start moving in the same direction once something new comes onto the scene, and also about how much he's grabbed onto in his first year on Long Island, in conversation with Kevin Woodley.
The problem with the goalie community, like I've seen it since I was young, like back in the day before just when I broke into the league. You know, it was Francois Lehner's time. You know, like
Frankie,
and he did a lot of. I respect him. He's one of the best. But what happens is he teaches this body illusion and little blocking style. Look big. What happens is, wow, it's a little bit of a new thing. The whole goalie community totally buys into it and overbuys into it, and that's now all we got to do.
Well, and I think
that's what the goalie community does. They buy into one thing and then they create it as their religion instead of putting it in a toolbox. And you see these days in NHL, you need to have a package of a lot of things. If you're a one-dimensional goalie, you know what? Come playoff time or come against teams who play a lot, pre-scouting and all these things that's happening, create a game plan and you expose them. It's what's going to happen. It's goalies that can make up, that has a lot of tools in the toolbox and can work really well structurally and strategically with their D-men and with their team. Like there's so much more to goalie than how you push and how you move and how you. It's about reads. It's about feel. It's about just the biggest thing for me this year is Mitch and Piero has done a great job for me. I understand angles for the first time in my career. I gotta be honest. Like they've really broken down my angles in a way that no one else has before, and that allows me that I've never been so good in position that I am this year. I'm in position on almost every puck, and with a big guy like me. And now when I'm in position, without thinking about it, I can now strategize and read at the same time as I'm in position. So it calmed my game down a lot. I don't have to move so much back and forth. They've really helped me with my positioning. Small movements, but I don't move as much. Like we do it every day before practice. We do angle drills. That's all we do, and being in the middle of the net. Being in the middle of the net, how to make saves, how to lean into pucks, and one of the other things that we really worked on. I think I was good at it before, but putting a game plan and a strategy for screenplays, because majority of the shots these days, in my opinion, is through traffic. So if you don't have a good traffic strategy, you're screwed in this league. So
and it involves your teammates too, right? Like picking a side and what.
Yeah, no, it's definitely with the D-men and all this stuff. Like we have a really if there's a flank shot or someone attacking from the sides, my D-man knows that they're covering the far side of the net and I have the inside of the net. That's our assignments. So now I know I am not allowed to get beat on the inside. But I also know that my D is going to have the far side, so that even if I have to take another step to my left, if he comes down on the right side, and I'm opening up a little bit too much on my far side.
Yeah.
That's fine, because I'm going to trust my D-man, but it also the guy that's in front of me is screening. If I can take another step to my left and be confident with that, I'm going to see pucks all the time, and I'm just going to focus on. Even if someone comes in and try to go barring in on my short side, I know that they only have this side, so it's going to be so much easier to react to, because
you're not trying to take away everything.
No, but if you take an example, if you're in say in warm-ups and you have a guy just shooting at you, say he takes 20 pucks and I'll shoot 5 gloves, shoot 5 blocker. Are you ever going to get beat? No, you know where the puck is going to come. Where reactions fails is when a guy is in the middle of the net and he can shoot anywhere, because then you got to process and then react. If you know where the shot's going to come, You don't have to process. You're just going to react to it. So it's having a strategy and a game plan, and really have a game plan through traffic and how to look over them, how to still be in balance, be calm and be in balance. It helps your game tremendously.
You're so used to getting the cliche answers when you walk into a professional sports dressing room. It's refreshing from Robin Lehner. And after everything that he's been through, maybe we should expect it, but the angles part of it shocked me. The reference to everybody gets caught up and moving in the same direction, and we get blinders on, the cattle call, and then puck tracking. So I'll leave it up to you, Woodley. What really grabbed you out of this conversation with Robin Lehner?
Well, for starters, you want to know how much more refreshing it is? That's game day. That's a couple minutes out of about a 17-minute conversation that he pulls me aside to have on a game day.
Was he playing?
He played that night against the Vancouver Canucks. Got his 4th shutout, which is a career high for a single season that night. I'd be honest with you, I didn't expect it. I had tried to hook up with him the day before on an off day, but it's an off day, so it's tougher to do for them. They were coming off back-to-back in Alberta, and I really didn't expect. I kind of thought I really wanted to write a story about the changes in his game. We all know about the changes in his life. I wanted to write a story about the changes in his game, and I didn't expect to get that time. But Robin just told the PR staff that, hey, we're going to sit down and chat. We typically do. I'm good with it, and we just talked for a long time like that, and so yeah, it is refreshing, but that's Robin. That's nothing to do with the change in everything else going on in his life. He's always been like that. We've had those conversations every time he visits. The part that jumps out to me, and frankly, I had to go back after the game and clarify, was angles. When he talked about angles, I'm like, what? I listened to it afterwards, and I was like, angles? Like, how do you not know whether you're in the middle of the net? That's how I thought of angle, right? Like, you're in the NHL, and that's not what he meant. What he meant, to me, angle is both position and, in his words, squareness. And he had the position. He knew how to be in the middle of the net. He had no rotation in his game as he retreated. So, trying to explain this on radio, imagine if you started facing parallel to the goal line at the top of your crease, square to the middle of the ice. So you're up top of your crease. As he retreated to his post, he would sort of drift back in a straight line, and he would end up what we call flat, off angle. So he would stay, in terms of his body position, he would move it up and down the crease to be in the middle of the net, that part of angle, but he'd get no rotation towards the puck. So as it came down the wing or into the corner, he would get flatter and flatter along his goal line. And as you lose squareness, that part of angle, you get smaller, you open holes. I mean, it's just, you're not square to the puck. And so that's
okay.
What's
So
changed.
Just to clarify, I'm thinking hips and shoulders are parallel to the goal line, and that's what you mean by flattening out?
Exactly. Okay. Rather than as that play comes down the wing, getting rotation as you move down towards your post. And now if you watch Robin, and actually if you have a chance to watch him in a game, go watch his warm-up before each period or before the game. He'll start at the corner of his crease, and that's kind of become home base for him. He talked about it in the story. Even against the rush, he used to have a lot more flow to his game. Even against the rush, he's not coming out much further than that. And from the top of his crease, from the top down, so that's where we talk about tracking, in terms of starting those movements with the head, he builds that rotation, and with 2 short shuffles, he's at that post, and he's maintaining that squareness, as you said, Darren, with the hips, with the shoulders, probably actually with the shoulders first and then with the hips as he comes down to the post, and it's 2 quick movements. And if you watch him in warm-ups, you watch him before the game in the pregame warm-up, you'll see him sort of go through those movements. And if you watch his game now, he's square all the time, and he's big, and he's playing a much more efficient, effective game. And then he still has that ability to go outside the box. I mean, we saw him in the Vancouver game. He joked about it afterwards. He made a 2-pad stack save on a backdoor rebound. And, we were chuckling about it in the locker room. I'm like, he went old school, and he just laughed. He says, I told you, I'm not like other goalies. So he's not stuck in a box, but he's got better structure at the foundation of his game positionally right now. You add that with their system, No odd man rushes. They don't give up many underberry trots. That's a big difference. And the other thing Lehner talked about that we can get into, screens. He talked about it there, guys, like a system for screens. Screens are not find the puck and figure it out. Screens are a system with your defenseman. They take the middle of the ice, I take the short side, or vice versa. Most teams, it's short side. And there's a trust built in through repetition that this is my part of the net on the screen, and you're going to make sure you box out, or the way you position yourself against the guy doing the screen is on that side of the net. So I only sort of have to worry about half of it.
Would love to get into that in depth, and that sounds like a fantastic teaching segment to get into, but just let me be the voice of all the people who are screaming inside their heads listening to Robin Can't Stay Square. How does that happen, Kevin? Because 5 and 6 year olds are taught to move in a semicircle around their crease. You're obviously talking about some precision to his movement and the way that he's executing that, but the fact that it was fundamentally missing, how do you make it to the NHL with something like that missing?
I think probably it's just a function of the natural talent that Robin's always had. We've talked about it in the past that there's a reliance at sometimes on that natural gift versus refining it. His ability to sort of play with flow and play differently was something like he excelled at times playing his way. And so, to him, that way was a lot of flow, and there's a lot more sliding, whereas now he's beating everything on his skates. And so I don't think this is in any way a function of other goalie coaches not recognizing those things or not trying to change them. This is just Robin was so good with those other elements I talked about that he was able to sort of get away with this. And, sometimes there's a give and take there with the goalie and the goalie coaches in terms of making changes like that. I think the other thing, too, is that a lot of people forget and this is what is maybe most impressive about the things he's changed this season is he's done it for the most part in season. And that's not easy to do. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, I see this in this guy's game. Why can't we change it? You talk to goalie coaches around the league in the NHL, a lot of it at that level is just maintenance because once that season starts, you're balancing practice time. And this is where, to be honest, this is where the Islanders system with 2 goalies is perfect because they're playing both of them so that the other guy has time to keep sharp, to continue to work on his game with the goalie coaches. And obviously it's Mitch Korn as the director of goaltending. And I think a lot of people forget Piero Greco doing a heck of a job as the on the ice every day, day-to-day traveling with the team goalie coach as well. So I think everybody knows that Mitch followed Barry to Long Island, but don't overlook Piero Greco, former Toronto Marlies goalie coach, and the role he's played in all this as well.
Couple of observations there. Why now? Hutch, you kind of referred to that after one, and how does he get to the NHL? But people may also be wondering why now does he adopt this? His career's at a crossroad coming into the season, and he has to buy in. So
well, I think
there you go.
Yeah, and I think too, guys, like sometimes we've talked about this with young goalies. Sometimes it takes a while for a young goaltender to find a message that sort of clicks for them that pulls everything together. Sometimes it takes a while to find that voice. And sometimes it takes a while before they're ready to make changes themselves and willing to accept that voice and those lessons.
And just to Hutch, play off the cattle where he mentioned that everybody gets the blinders on, too caught up in the latest trend, and they forget about everything else. And the versatility is obvious in Robin's game.
I think we're starting to see that with more and more goaltenders now. You talk about keeping shooters off balance because they've grown up with goaltenders playing a particular style, and now the shooters are learning to adapt to that and in fact combat that with a little bit of deception on their own part, as we've said on here before. So guys have to throw different things in there now, and that pad stack, Kevin, is a fantastic example of throwing something in to keep people off balance and so that you're not so predictable in a game that over the years has become all too predictable. We hear the theme every year. Of course, somebody wins the Stanley Cup, and then everybody wants to remake their franchise after that team. It's a copycat game, copycat league. It's great to see a lot of individual style starting to come in from the crease.
Well, I tell you what, this is what we call a tease. I'm learning, guys. I'm learning. But one of our guests next week, Frederick Anderson, one of the changes he's made in his game is certain angles post play, dead angle play. Instead of playing each situation one way, they've worked really hard to groove multiple ways to integrate into his post, multiple ways to handle each situation, in part because it makes him tougher to pre-scout. And that's a big part of playoffs and breaking down playoff goaltenders. So he's throwing different looks on purpose in similar situations and working hard to be able to master each one.
Before we get too far down this path, and I wanted to turn the corner to a great moment this week in Carey Price, but screen strategy that Robin brought up. If you don't have time to work with the same guys every day, so you're the 25-year-old just playing, what is your strategy, or what should your strategy be? It's on a screen. Should it be to cheat to the forehand, to the side of the, if it's a left-handed shot, you cheat to that side, or what do you guys suggest?
Oh, I would say, go ahead, Hutch.
Well, I just going to say, I think it depends a little bit where the puck is on the ice, but I always picture the top corners of the net opening up as a lane for somebody from the point to see. I think quite often the defensemen are clogging up the middle, as Kevin alluded to there. So I'm thinking short side. I'm thinking usually a little bit higher because guys are looking for an opening, and it's what they can see. And I also think we often talk about the mental game, but you just can't ever forget that you have to keep battling. How often do you see a goaltender, and I'm not really talking the NHL here, obviously, but how often do you see a goaltender in a situation like that sort of give up? And, well, I can't see the puck. I'm just going to do my best to drop and block. And you've got to keep battling. You've got to find that puck at all costs. And it sounds crazy to have to mention that, but how many times do you see a goal scored and then the hands just go up in the air and I had no hope? So I'm thinking always battle, and I'm thinking those top corners are probably open, especially on a short guy like me.
It sounds to me like we should have I'll get some NHL guests on here to talk about their screen strategies, but for the most part, the default at that level, and I think it makes sense at all levels, is short side. If you have to pick a side around a screen, two reasons you pick the short side. One, it's the shortest path for the puck. The puck has to travel further to get to the far side, which buys you time. If you're cheating short side, looking to the short side, and you see it being shot to the far side, you have a little more time to shift versus vice versa. Second is, as Hutch said, at all levels, traffic is going to tend to funnel towards the middle of the net. So it's more likely to hit something and not get through to you in the middle versus on the short side. And again, not to the point where you're taking yourself out of the net, but if you're picking a side, you pick the short side. That's the
Look
default.
to that side. I think McKenna did an article for us on the website years ago about his screen strategy. Might be something we could refer to for everybody or put in the show notes.
So should you pick a side? Is the worst thing in the world just to go down right in the middle?
I think today.
I mean, yeah. I mean, in two parts. One, I mean, pick a side if you can't see around the guy, if you're not tall enough to see over and around him, for sure. But yeah, just dropping behind him, you're basically taking up the same amount, unless the shot's coming right at him and you actually can pick it up and read that. The reality is you're now taking, it's like double coverage with a blocker or a glove.
Coverage, yeah.
You're taking up the same space he is. Now, if the shots go in there, you shift there, but just a panic drop on that side probably makes the least sense.
And I would say picking a side isn't you're putting your head there and it's not moving. You're still battling, you're still fighting. That might just sort of be where you're spending most of your time.
And this is an easy conversation at the NHL level. Now we're at the point now where the guys who are screening are also cognizant of the fact they're trying to create moving screens and get you to drift to the short side even more, force you to almost choose to come back to the middle and then get out of the way on the short side. The amount of back and forth that goes on in this in the NHL level is fascinating and fun to watch.
Hutch, are you watching what he's doing while he's explaining this whole thing?
Oh, the fact that he needs to move his body to do this?
Yeah, we're recording this on Skype, and we can all see each other, and I'm watching Woodley bounce around like he's looking around his microphone, the screen.
If this recording ever sees the light of day, I quit.
It might need to.
It was fascinating. That was great. The video that went viral, Carey Price with the young man whose mother passed away, but promised that she would find a way for him to meet his hero in Carey Price. It was sensational. It was beautiful. The hug when he put his equipment down, Carey put his equipment down. That's when it started with me. But you guys know Carey on a very different level than anybody else, really, than 95% of the population. So just take us through, because this isn't a surprise to you guys.
Not at all.
No, Hutch, you've seen it, and I've seen it. We do and just so people know, like, let's not pretend we're best buddies with him. We
No.
don't want to overstate it or anything like that. Don't want to pretend something that isn't. But the reality is, through the Eli Wilson Goalie Schools, they have an annual day with Price where you can get in on an auction or win your way in to spend the day with Carey, and that is, it's not just it's not an autograph session. It is the entire day. In the locker room, these kids get dressed with him, get changed with him. He leads them through their warm-ups off the ice to get them ready to go on the ice, and then he leads them through drills on the ice, demos the drills, rotates through and coaches them. And whether it's in the locker room, on the ice, at breakfast with them and the parents beforehand, this is who he is. What you saw in that video is who he is. And obviously different circumstances and heart-wrenching circumstances there. But me and Hutch have seen it. The way he is with kids especially, but even with parents, the first year, nobody told him to do this. But after he's done the introductions at the breakfast table with the kids and he sends the kids up to get their food, he walks over and introduces himself to every parent in the room. They're kind of sitting in the back while the kids are at the head table with him. Hi, I'm Carey Price. Thanks for coming. Like, and we get his dad, Jerry, is there all the time. And basically, I guess what you see is this is a kid who's been brought up the right way, and it translates to how he treats other people. And we've been privileged to see that, and I'm not surprised at all by what I saw in the video.
And
Before you go, Hutch,
Yep.
those of us that know Carey as the athlete, the reporter, the commentator, the fan, don't see that side. We see him as reserved, almost not antisocial, but certainly not the most sociable guy in the world. Like, just to hear him to be outgoing is a little different for the rest of us.
I think one thing we noted from these days up in Summerland with Eli and Carey was there was a growth in Carey when he became a father. The first summer up there, he was the reserve guy that I think you expected. Probably hadn't done something like this before, but as soon as he became a father, he opened up quite a bit more. And I don't put that down just to the experience, but one of the things I was going to say about it, Kevin, was just how genuine those interactions are when he's up there. You're sitting in the dressing room. One thing we did one summer is we got Carey to tape a stick on video that we could share with the world because he's a little bit unique in what he does, and we thought that would be fun. Well, sure enough, there was a parade of kids coming up to him in the dressing room after. Can you tape my stick for me? Can you tape my stick for me? Another kid comes up. Can you do my toe ties up for me? And none of it fazed him. It was like he was a hockey dad there helping, 18 kids or 16 kids. And he seemed to love every minute of it. There was a big smile on his face. The other thing that really took me back, I think, was that first year, Kevin, when a bunch of the kids arrived and parents arrived with gifts for Carey that were handed out at the end of the day. And there was a young man there who's of First Nations heritage like Carey. And they presented him with, was it a wolf skin or something?
It was
like
a wolf
that?
skin.
Yeah.
I remember that kid because I've actually followed his career and I've talked to his dad. It's Frankie Chaboyer, I believe, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yep.
And
Yep, I think
similar
he's probably
backstory,
bantam
right?
now.
His dad was driving something like 300 kilometers each way to get this kid to rep hockey. Similar type of background there.
And when that was handed to Carey, tears welled up in his eyes, and it was such an emotional moment. He really is a genuine guy off the ice, and it's a real privilege to be a part of that.
When I saw the video and I mentioned putting down the equipment and he reached over for the hug, the first thing in my mind was dad. So I'm glad you brought that up, Hutch.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
he just looked like he looked like a dad. Now
It
Carey's
changes
got
all of us,
himself
doesn't it?
Yeah, he's got himself into this conversation. I don't think he's got enough runway left to be a Vezina Trophy candidate, but he's certainly in there and will be bandied about. Robin Lehner, who you spoke with, Woodley, is up there. He's done enough. Now, the platoon, I don't know whether that works against him. And Andrei Vasilevsky is probably the leading candidate. I've got a reason why I would vote for somebody else, but just give me your Vezina Trophy candidates. We'll start with you, Woodley, about this Vezina Trophy race right now.
Yeah, I guess we can call this the In Goal Radio 3/4 poll or whatever they call it. Vezina Trophy breakdown. I'll be honest with you, Freddie Anderson's at the top of my list right now. with Andrei Vasilevsky. Beyond that, it's there are other names. Is Binnington probably nowhere? It doesn't have enough games. We talk about the games played. Vasilevsky's at 41 and Lehner's at 37. So I get how the Lehner-Greiss split and the fact that both of them have similar numbers. People will say it's system-based. That may hurt them. But in terms of games played, it's not that big a gap between Robin Lehner and Andrei Vasilevsky. I look at it, Fleury's up there at 56, Doobie 53. But to me, Freddie Anderson, he's already closing on 50. He is 1-2 with Jacob Markstrom in Vancouver in terms of saves made. I think the Leafs are not as good a team defensively. I know they've got star power everywhere else offensively, but look at some of the recent games. I mean, he is absolutely holding them in early. He's, between him and Vasilevsky right now, I'm leaning towards Freddie Anderson. And that's not just because we're going to have him as a guest next week.
Yeah, but it's not a bad reason. I'll tell you that. In the world of making sure your guests are happy, that ranks right up there.
Well, it's pretty hard to argue with either of those. I'm interested in the comparison between the starter and the backup, and whether that teases out some of the system stuff. Are you familiar with any of those numbers, Kevin?
Well, I'd tell you, Freddie Anderson I don't have it again. I guess the fact I have to scroll quite a bit further down before I find Louis Domingue compared to Andrei Vasilevsky. I have to scroll quite a bit down the page. As a matter of fact, he's not on the page, with all due respect.
But Louis' win streak, he broke Andrei's record.
Yeah, that's what
true.
jumped out at me.
Yeah,
and when Vasilevsky went out, Louis was great, and they kept on winning. So that's why I would default more to a Frederik Andersen or a Marc-Andre Fleury, is just performance compared to backup.
Yeah, and that's fair. And we see a lot of clusters this year. Take a look at Hudobin and Bishop. They're right there in terms of save percentage. Halak and Rask side by side in terms of save percentage. Obviously, Lehner and Greiss are right there in terms of their numbers. You're right. Vasilevsky's at a 931. Domingue's at a 908. Freddie Anderson's 923. And I'm just trying to find Garrett Sparks' story, and I think it's a games played thing that I'm having trouble finding. Sparks is at 902, so, and in a tough role. Let's not forget that. We saw it with McElhenney. That is a tough role when you're not playing very often. But yeah, I think that counts, and that's also, it's in the favor of Marc-Andre Fleury as well, whose save percentage numbers aren't there, but 8 shutouts, and from him to the backup, it's a pretty big gap.
Well, and games played too. Isn't Subban sitting at only about 11 games?
Yeah, and Fleury leads the league.
Yeah.
4 wins too for Malcolm Subban, who was hurt for a little bit, but Marc-Andre Fleury has carried this. So mine are Fleury, Vasilevsky, and Anderson. But I want to put Robin Lehner in there. I just can't because of the platoon. So those are my 3. Can you guys give me your 3?
It's hard to fight against any of those names, but where are the Canucks without Jacob Markstrom? The numbers might not be there, but where are the Canucks without Jacob Markstrom?
Yeah, he's having an incredible season. My three for sure are probably similar, Darren. I'd be honest with you. My 1 and 2 are Vasilevsky and Anderson, probably in the reverse order right now. And then, to be honest with you, 3, I could go either way, whether it's Lehner or I guess, or even Fleury. I think that save percentage for him probably takes him out of that conversation. But you're right, the games played, the wins. There's a lot of positives there as well. At the end of the day, I think this is a Vasilevsky and Anderson race right now, unless something drastic happens. Hey, Andrei Vasilevsky was running away with this award at this time last season and struggled down the stretch, and everything changed. But at this point, to me, it's those 2.
GM's vote on this award.
How about the Calder? Is Binnington going to wrestle his way in there at all? Has he got enough runway?
I'll be honest with you. I'm biased towards the goalies. I don't know how you ignore him. This could get me death threats in the Vancouver market
he doesn't win it. There's no way.
It's Elias Pettersson all the way.
Yeah.
I think he's got 2 assists in his last 5 games. I mean, there's runway left here. If Pettersson continues to struggle and Binnington lifts, the Blues have a chance to take over the Central, for crying out loud. Bennington's got a 933 and we're at the 21. If he plays, he could get to 35 starts. Binnington.
And isn't he leading the league in save percentage and goals against average? I mean, Pettersson is doing well, but he's not leading the scoring race.
That's true. It's all good points.
You know what? Don't make me expand my role in this podcast. I'm already the layman who brings in the average Joe's question. Don't make me the voice of reason here, please, guys.
Okay, be the voice of reason.
I beg
Darren.
Well,
of you.
it's sure as hell not going to be us two.
Because it adds such a
against
layer
you guys
when
with
it adds a real layer to all this when you start trying to predict how it's going to get voted on. And as Kevin has pointed out before, the Vezina Trophy is voted on by general managers, a very different group who often have a very different criteria for how they're picking it.
Well, they often get it wrong.
Yes.
3/4 of the season for Pedersen, and a little bit of a blip, sure, but I'm gonna hold firm on that one.
Oh, I don't disagree with who's going to win it.
Let's slide over to our feature interview of the week, and this one's a little bit different because it's very rare on any type of podcast that you would go to a guy who hasn't played and who's in the middle of a long rehab for your conversation. But one, there's a great relationship built up between Kevin Woodley and Eddie Lack, and number two, he's a fun and fascinating personality, both as a goaltender and then just a regular human. It's a bit sad that I have to describe it like that as a regular human and as a goaltender. So this is Kevin Woodley's catch up with Eddie Lack in the midst of recovering from hip surgery in our feature interview of In Goal Radio, the podcast brought to you by the Hockey Shop, source for sports.
All right, so we got the pleasure today of catching up with an old friend of mine, a guy who I got to know during his time here in Vancouver and over the summers working out and in the off-season in Kelowna. Somebody who I'm proud to call a friend despite the fact I don't have any of his memorabilia in my office, but that's a matter for another day. Eddie Lack, formerly of the Canucks, formerly of the Hurricanes, currently of the New Jersey Devils, but now I understand in Arizona where you're rehabbing a second hip surgery.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we had to after, we started with Bobby Lou and you sent us the tweet about being his backup again.
Yeah. I'm super happy that he's third on the list now. That's awesome. I actually texted him today and just congratulated him. That's a huge accomplishment from the legend.
Well, let me start there because I think I wanted to catch up with where you're at and the injury and the rehab, but let's just start there. You played with some great ones. Obviously, one of the greatest of all time. What are your memories and what are the lessons you took away from playing with Roberto Luongo?
No, but it's just the way that he prepares for like games and practice and everything. Like the best goalies that I play with has always been the hardest workers, the ones that are never satisfied and want to get better every day. That's like the biggest thing that I took away from Bobby for sure. But then like it's also like I came as a young kid from Sweden and the way that he welcomed me too and made me feel welcome to like the team, that was like a huge thing to take with me too. It doesn't matter who or what you've done, but always treat everyone the same. And that's something that I really appreciate for sure.
I've talked to other goalies who in Florida, I remember some call-ups. They come in, first taste of the NHL, and they see Roberto out there, half an hour early working with Robbie Tallis, and they're kind of blown away at what it takes and what he puts in. Did you have a moment like that where it's like, holy crap, that's Roberto Luongo, but then also, holy crap, look at the work he's doing?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I have like a special moment like that. The first training camp that we shared together, we were roommates too, so that was kind of fun. And like, if I remember too, when I was calling my like friends from back home and everything, I'm like, guys, I'm gonna share a room with like Roberto Luongo, and they're like, no way, dude, that's awesome. And yeah. He basically just like ended up buying me breakfast every morning too, so that was really fun.
And so then you basically repay him by taking the start that runs him out of town in Vancouver.
I don't know about that.
I'm just giving you a hard time. What do you remember of that though? That was kind of that was a tumultuous year for everyone, and yet for you it was an opportunity to play a lot more. I think a lot of people, especially right now, Columbus Blue Jackets and goaltending and a lot of focus on John Tortorella, but I remember talking to you and he was one of your favorite coaches. What was that year like?
No, I know, but the Heritage Classic and everything, it was kind of weird, because most people wanted Louis to play, and I totally understand that too. It was just that I wanted to play too, because I got told that I was gonna play, and I wasn't gonna turn that down when Tor told me that I could play. So yeah, it was kind of a weird situation because I felt that Luongo earned that start too, with everything that he's doing through the organization and everything. But when Torts told me that I could play, it was all focused on just that one game, and make the most out of it,
How hard was that? I mean, you kind of were put in a tough spot, like you said. It's a dream start, and yet hard to overlook everything that's going on around you, including Heritage Classic, a stadium at BC Place that holds 50,000 full of people who, like you said, a lot of them wanted to see the other guy. That can't be an easy spot.
No. I honestly wasn't thinking too much about people outside, but especially the day before when I saw Louis with his kids on the ice and everything, and I knew how much that he was looking forward to that game too. I felt that was harder for me because that was something that, especially when we played together and everything, because I consider him a friend, and that's the hard thing about goaltending, because it's you only have one guy playing and the other guy is on the bench, and that was the hardest thing, to see him the day before with his kids and stuff, for sure.
How do you manage those relationships? Because you've had a few over the years. It's not always easy. And like you said, I mean, this is kind of part of the dynamic for every goaltender, young and old. You both want to play, and yet there's only one net. What do you think what are some of the lessons you've learned over time that go into being a good teammate, being a good backup, still being the same guy when you get a chance to maybe start ahead of the other guy? There's some lessons you think you could share maybe that young kids might benefit from.
I don't know, but for me, it's been pretty easy to separate the goalies that I've been with and the guys that I've been with. On the ice, I'm 100% competitive. I'm all about beating the other guy and beating the guy for starts, But once I'm in the locker room or we're having dinner outside or whatever, that's been pretty easy for me to just separate those two and get to know the guys personally and have a relationship off the ice compared to on the ice.
Okay, now we didn't plan on starting this with going back to your time as a Canuck and Roberto and all that thing. It just led down this path. I do want to, we can hear you're obviously in your car and driving back from a session of rehab, second hip surgery, with the Devils and with their American Hockey League affiliate this year. Needed the second hip surgery. Walk us through. Tell us where you're at in terms of that process with the rehab. How frustrating has it been to end up having to go under the knife on the other side now? And, what's the prognosis for the hip?
No, I mean, these hip issues and stuff, it's been something that I've been dealing with for a long time too. I mean, it goes back from my Vancouver days too, and now it all kind of got to this point where I had to get the second surgery done too. I mean, looking back at it, I kind of wish that I did it sooner too, but you never really want to get into surgery unless you have any other option, but for me right now, I'm just trying not to think too far ahead. I'm just thinking about this day or this week and what do I have to do to get like a little bit better every day. And especially these last few years have been so frustrating for me too, that it's like right now I just want to get back to feeling like 100% again. And I know that you and I have talked about this like a ton with my stance and how I set myself up and everything. But like me talking about my stance has come 100% because of my hip issues. So I've been kind of like over rotating one side, or like maybe if I turn my hip this way, my hip's not gonna hurt and stuff. So these years has just been like a constant battle. And right now, the main thing for me is just getting back to feeling like 100% and not thinking about my hip, because like it's been a long time coming.
So it sounds like in a lot of ways you've been basically everything you've done in terms of, like you said, stance, setup, the way you're moving have been in part compensation for what you were going through with the hip.
No, I know, and like honestly, so I really don't want to make this like a cry story that I'm crying out in the media or like whatever, because like I know that there's a ton of guys that are going through like the same thing, you know, and basically for me, like I don't think that I played one game in like the NHL not having pain, you know. It's just like part of the daily life of being an athlete, you know. And the hip stuff has really bothered me, especially the last year or so. So like this is really something that I just wanted to take care of now too, so I can first of all just live a normal life, you know, and then we'll see where it takes me from there.
Now, what's rehab like from that? I mean, it's funny. I've talked to literally, you know, probably without exaggerating, probably 100 goaltenders over the year that have had this surgery at all different levels. I mean, I remember being part of the research when I used to string for Sports Illustrated, the big feature we did back when J.S. Shiger was having it. And as part of that research, we found like 12 and 13-year-olds having the surgery almost as a precautionary measure, knowing that their hips, if they continued to play goal, were eventually going to start carving out cartilage because of the way the femur was shaped. But I don't think I've ever talked to anyone about the rehab process. What's this like? How, you're immobile for how long? And then what steps do you take? What's it like getting back from a major hip surgery as a goaltender?
So, like, there's a lot of surgeons that do it different way, first of all. I mean, some guys have you weight bearing after just a few days, while in my case, Dr. Kelly that I did it with in New York, he wants you like weight bearing for 3 or 4 weeks. So the first weeks are like tough, because then you're basically just like rehab to go back home, and they give you this like CPM machine that moves your leg up and down, and you basically have to lay in that like 6 hours a day just to not make your leg go stiff with scar tissue and everything.
So you've got you're lying in bed with a machine moving your leg for 6 weeks?
Yeah, that's the first 6 weeks, and that's 6 hours every single day that like you have to lay in that machine. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, now I'm like 2 months out, so like there's no crutches, there's like nothing, and I can move now like better than I did before my surgery, you know. So the only thing that I'm basically restricted from right now is like jumping and running and stuff like that until it's like 100% healed. But I can squat with like moderate weights, and yeah. So my workout right now is kind of long. They're like 4.5 hours a day. So it's kind of like way different from my first surgery, because I remember I was basically only there like maybe an hour and a half 2 hours a day then. But I guess the protocol has changed now.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of progression since then. It's amazing how fast things change. 6 hours a day lying in bed with a machine moving your leg for 6 weeks. I gotta ask, other than catching up on all the In Goal podcasts, what were you what were you listening to? What were you doing? People want to know what's the best show on Netflix right now. What were you watching to stay busy?
No, but there's been some Netflix. I mean, so I've actually started to study a little bit too. So I've been reading a lot and stuff like that, get my brain going a little bit too. but yeah, 6 hours does get a little bit boring after a while.
Yeah, I would imagine. Okay, and hold on, studying. What, like you're not the art of goaltending? You're looking at other things right now. Tell us catch us up with what you've been looking at.
No, but I've been kind of getting into some real estate and stuff lately, and basically, I just want to learn, develop myself as much as I can. I mean, I know that when I was 18 and I was a goalie, it was just hockey. But the older you get, you kind of start to realize that there's more stuff out there too, and that's kind of what I'm interested in right now. And then obviously, I still watch a lot of games and follow up on scores and highlights and stuff like that too.
So preparing for life after hockey, but not necessarily done. That fair to say?
Kevin, I'm getting old.
Hey, you're talking to a 45-year-old goaltender who can hardly get out of bed the next morning. You're not old yet.
Yeah. What about a 31-year-old that can't get out of bed?
Well, that's an entirely different case. But it sounds like you got an eye on both things. Let's you mentioned sort of being 18 and hockey. Let's go through some of the background, like some of the path to here. What as a kid, how'd you fall in love with the game? What made you? Was it goaltending all the way? Were you a forward first? How did Eddie Lack become a goaltender?
So Sweden won the Olympics in '94, and this is what I learned after. But when I saw Sweden win, that was the coolest thing ever. But obviously now when I look back at it, '94, it was kind of like this past Olympics too. There was no NHL players there,
So hold on, 94, we got to shout out to Corey Hirsch there, right?
Yep. So Peter Forsberg scored on Corey Hirsch back home in Sweden. That goal became a stamp on all the postal cards and everything.
And 6-year-old Eddie Lack took notice.
Tommy Salo did a 2-pad stack for Sweden to win it, and after that, I was just sold on the game.
So you 6 at the time. Was it goaltending the whole way, or did you start playing other positions?
So I started playing with guys that were 1 or 2 years older than me. So my skating ability was not even close to the rest. So I stood in goal and apparently I stopped some shots too. So then I just loved it and I wanted to keep going.
What was it? What was it about the position that you loved?
Probably that it's you're either a hero or a zero. That's what I always love about it. But you kind of make your own day, There's no gray marks when you're a goalie. You're the best in the world one day or you are the worst, which is kind of funny to me. That's what I loved about it too. But now part of me doesn't like it.
I was gonna say that can be an attractive thing as a kid, but that can become, I guess, hard to deal with as a pro, especially when you're in a market like Vancouver, Calgary. After that, where the focus is so intense, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, but I mean, Calgary, I didn't even play. So the biggest thing that I would do different if I could do Vancouver again would be, especially early in my career, because I'm one of these guys that want to please everyone. I want everyone to like me. And me being young in Vancouver, I feel that I cared a little bit too much about what people thought about me, especially the ones that didn't like me. I cared even more about them, and that's something that I would for sure change if I could do it again. Because now, when I've been through this for like a longer time, now I know that that those guys doesn't even matter, you know.
What I mean, there's lessons there. I mean, being a backup too, especially in that role at the start of your career with the Canucks, and then through various stops since. It's not an easy balance to find. You need to be out late in practice. Being popular in the room, being that guy that everybody likes in the room, like that's sort of almost part of the job description. If you were talking to a young professional about adjusting to life in that role, as much as everybody wants to be a starter, like what are the keys that go into being your best self and still being able to be a good teammate and be a good backup goaltender in that role? Not that anybody craves that role, but there's an art to it.
Yeah. No, like I hear what you're saying, but like to be honest, that old stuff kind of came natural to me. Like for me, it wasn't anything different really from being a starter to a backup, because for me, I always stayed out late in practice. I always did the extra stuff. I was always like the happy guy and like try to spread jokes around the team. Some teams that I've been on thought that was a disadvantage, like when I became the starter and I was trying to like, they felt that I was a little bit too loose around the room to be a starter. And like me trying to please everyone, I kind of tried to change myself and like be like a little more quiet and be a little more serious on like practicing in the locker room, whatever. But like that's what I figured out, that for me to work out, I have to be me. Like I can't try to be someone else or like try to please everyone, you know. So yeah, that's a little different.
You played with, we talked about Roberto early, but we don't want to overlook Ryan Miller either. You spent some time with Ryan Miller, who,
Yep.
as much as I love Roberto's passion, Miller's right up there too in terms of just meticulous with his body, with his gear, with his approach to the position and the way he thinks things through. What were some of the lessons you took away from, that opportunity to spend time with a guy who is now, talking about milestones, with the winningest goaltender, American-born goaltender in the history of the NHL?
Before I played with Ryan Miller, I thought that I was overthinking stuff and everything. Man, that guy thinks about everything, like every single little detail about the game. And I think that has made him so good, because that works for him. He found out something that worked for him, and he just kept doing it. And yeah, I mean, Ryan Miller's passion for the game is unbelievable. Like he loves the game, and that shows when he plays too. I mean, such a good goalie.
How do you find that balance? And I know it's something that you've talked about over the years, and probably may even still be trying to figure out. I'm not sure. You tell me. The balance between wanting to have that attention to detail and overthinking things. We've had other guests on the podcast. We had Thatcher Demko in, and he talked about pregame warm-up and all those things he used to do because he had learned them along the years. He saw other people doing them. So many tiny little elements: vision warm-up, body warm-up, visualization, dynamic, like everything. And by the time the game started, he was exhausted. That balance between thinking about details and not overthinking things, and going out and playing free, is it different for everyone? How do you find it?
So I think that just comes from like getting older and playing a lot. I feel like that's like the biggest thing that comes when people say that goalies take a longer time to like develop, and like you have to bide your time in the AHL and stuff. I feel like that's one of the things that are coming with that, because you are allowed to like make your mistakes down there, and like you are learning what those mistakes mean, and that's how you develop too. I feel like my first year in the American League, that was really, really good. Like, that's when I played in Manitoba, and the year was going great and everything, and we were going to have our first playoff series. And the week leading up to it, that's when I was trying too much, cause every single practice, I was out like 45 to an hour extra, because I was trying to squeeze all of these little things into my preparation, because I thought that if I didn't do this one thing, that's gonna screw my whole game up. So like when the first game came, like I was exhausted. I think I got pulled after like 10, 15 minutes, whatever, and like I was just atrocious out there because I was so tired, And then they started the other guy for a couple of games, but then I came back in for game 4, I think, and I learned my lesson, And after that, the playoff just went great for me, But like that was one of the things that I had to figure out, that I can't do too much because that's gonna screw me over,
Yeah, no, I think that's, when you talk about the development curve for a lot of guys, sometimes it's finding different keys to their game at different points from different voices, and finding the right voice takes time. Sometimes it's just experience. Like you said, you got to learn, you got to be through it before you learn from it.
Plus, there's like the most goalies that I've dealt with, like for the past 15 years, like the goalies are really the hardest workers out there, and like there's not like lazy goalies that I've met out there, and for a lot of these younger guys, it's going to be like less is more, and less is usually better when it comes to stuff like that.
Okay, I wanted to touch real quick on your history in Sweden. Now, goalie coaches, this has kind of become a focus, something we touch on with every guy. You were sort of part of a wave when, quote unquote Swedish goaltenders were a hot property in the NHL. We've heard a lot about the development sort of program over there for young goaltenders. You kind of came on the heels of that. So, like for you growing up, when did you have your first goalie coach? When did you sort of get exposed to that program where goalie coaching was something you had consistently, or how much of it was just trial and error and out there, and also with your dad, who I know played a big role in your development and in your career path?
Yeah, so my first coach was my dad, and basically he was my full-time goalie coach, but then every summer we went on these like goalie schools, whatever, like in Leksand where I'm from, and then every year we kind of picked up something new along the way, that he kept teaching me over the next year. So my dad was my goalie coach up until I was 15 or something, I think. But then when I was 10, I saw Stefan Lade, the guy for the Swedish national team. So I saw him, I think, once a week or once every 2 weeks from that I was 10. And he was one of the guys that kind of started that too, It was him and Thomas Magnuson. So those guys kind of like started it all. And I saw Stefan from when I was 10, and then probably up until like juniors in Sweden, and that's when I got like a real goalie coach that were not my dad on full time.
No, you don't have kids yet. No, it's something you plan on in the future. If you had a kid and he comes to you and he says, "Dad, I want to be a goalie," what's the perfect development? Well, A, are you going to let him or her? And B, what's the perfect development curve? We see so much talk these days. I mean, you've seen it in Sweden, where you were kind of part of that growth of that program with Magnuson and with Ladi. Do we see too much at times at a young age? If you were the guy running that show for your own child, what would that look like in terms of when do they become a goalie full time? When do you start introducing technical stuff? What would be the keys and the foundation you would lay?
So I'm one of these like old school ones, but I think that especially in Canada now, it's like crazy. Like 8-year-olds play hockey 12 months out of the year. Like that's crazy to me. Like when I grew up, we all played like hockey in the winter and soccer in the summer. You know, that was kind of our deal. I know that you can't really do exactly the same now, but it's like the more sports you played, the better of an athlete in general you get, I think. And that's still like the school that I would like to preach, you know? Yeah.
Get a little sports specific a little later in life.
Yes. Like look at Jacob Markstrom too. He's killing it right now. And like from what I understand, I'm not 100% sure, but I think he actually started playing goalie when he was 12.
That sounds about right from our conversations, yeah.
That's crazy to me. Like 12, and he still made it to start in the NHL. Like compared to these parents now that are putting their goalies through goaltending schools 12 months out of the year from when they're 5 or 6. Like you don't have to do that to become an NHL goalie. That's all I'm saying.
Sounds like good advice. Hey, who do you watch these days? You say you still keep tabs on it. Are there favorites from a goaltending perspective, whether it's old teammates or guys you're big on coming up? I mean, we've seen a guy you would know, Mackenzie Blackwood, kill it. Been nice to see another teammate of yours, Corey Schneider. Looks like he's found his form again and found his confidence again. Who you keeping tabs on beyond your current employer, the New Jersey Devils?
So, like, I usually keep tabs on all the teams that I played for. So, like, because that's like the guys that I know. You know, I play with these guys and I want them to do well. You know, that's kind of what I'm doing now. Then, like, I live in Arizona now, so I keep a little eye on Arizona too. And yeah, and as you know, too, I played through a few teams in like the NHL too, so there's a few teams to keep an eye on.
I was gonna say you gotta have to league scout it.
Yeah.
Between former teams and their opponents. But who do you like to watch as a goalie? Who played a certain way? Like, are there guys that you like to watch now, style wise, and why?
I love to watch Vasilevsky play. Like, he is like out of this world with his athleticism, and yeah, like he just makes those like impossible saves, which makes it fun to watch.
Okay, hey, you know what I just realized? I was looking through your bio, and we talked about Luongo, we talked about Schneider, we talked about Miller. Guys, especially in Miller and Luongo, have recently hit big milestones. I forgot to ask you, the guy that Luongo passed last night is another all-time great that you played with, albeit for a very short time. What was life like as the backup for Leksands in Swedish First Division with Ed Belfour as the number one goalie coming in late in his career as an import?
No, like it was crazy. Like he was still a really, really good goalie when he came over, you know, and like that was still.
I think a lot of us thought. Yeah, I think a lot of us thought he should have still been in the NHL. Frankly.
Yeah. So like, the biggest thing that I remember from Ed, it was that like before his first games in Sweden, it was so hyped up, you know, like they had these huge like fan tifos and stuff in the stands, whatever, and like it was just like so big that he was coming to small Leksand, you know, and his first game he let his first shot in, I remember, and like the whole arena just went dead quiet, you know, like so quiet, and then he shut the game the door from that point to I think 3 or 4 games forward. He didn't let a goalie off of that, so that was kind of funny.
Did you learn anything from him? He was kind of at a stage of his career and he had a reputation where, I'm not sure mentor would have been a description that a lot of people would have used for Eddie. He took care of, he knew what he needed to do to get himself ready, but were there any lessons learned, or did you have a chance to get to know him at all?
Yeah, so Ed was basically the first guy that showed me to roll out, this was 15 years ago, and no one had really shown me the foam roll and stuff like that, So he showed me that, and then I remember every bus ride, I just try to sit next to him, and just bug him with questions. How is it to play in the NHL? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'm sure that I was super annoying for a 43-year-old Balfour, but yeah, basically I was just trying to soak up as much as I could.
And he tolerated, so there you go.
Yep.
Okay, so last one. Amidst all this, playing with Balfour, playing with Luongo, Heritage Classic, a World Championship gold medal as well. What are the memories? If like I said, I know you're not done yet necessarily, but what are the biggest memories of your career right now? Or does it go back to time with your dad that you got to spend back in Sweden or even on the road in the NHL when he joined you? What stands out to you as one of the better memories so far?
No, but it's there's so much things that I've got to experience. I got to learn through hockey. Without hockey, I wouldn't have met my wife. All the friends that I met. Yeah, I mean, there's so many memories. Hockey-wise, I would probably say the first year in the NHL was really cool. Playing with Bobby. The second year was cool when we made the playoffs. The World Championship goal was really cool. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff to choose from.
And like we said, not necessarily done yet. We don't mean it to sound like that, but we'll see how this rehab goes. See how the real estate lessons go.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. Every goalie's mantra. And Eddie, we thank you for taking the time on this day to come on and talk goaltending with the In Goal Radio podcast, man. I really appreciate it. It's good to catch up, and hope to do it in person soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, bud.
I just pictured Eddie Lack driving around his neighborhood there towards the end of that interview because he was in the car for a while, but he'd never tell you. There's no way he'd ever tell you. My memory of Eddie Lack, beyond what happened in Vancouver, was in Carolina. He did this commercial, guys, for, I think it was a Mexican food chain or a taco food chain, where he had this sandwich board. And this was the soundbite. I brought it here. I brought a clip. Here's the soundbite.
Hey Gonza, what's up, buddy? You got my Loco Taco ready?
It is ready, senor, but there's one more thing I need you to do for me.
No way, we talked about this.
Well, sorry, senor. A deal is a deal.
Loco Taco, Gonza, come on, Loco Taco.
So that's my lasting image of Eddie Lack beyond just the personality, but it kind of they go hand in hand, don't they, Woodley?
Standing outside of Gonzo Tacos with a Loco Taco signboard screaming Loco Tacos. Yeah, it isn't it funny to hear that interview now and we know the personality, and he talked about how there were times in his career, I think some of that was here, where teammates and the organizations, found that the personality was too much, and that if he could do it again, he'd go back and not listen to that he'd be himself, because trying to be other things usually doesn't work out for you.
Isn't that a theme that's starting to recur here a little bit through a number of these interviews? Maybe not just being yourself, but not trying to be somebody different. And that really stood out with the Thatcher Demko interview, as he was talking about all the preparations he used to go through that he's not. We're hearing from a lot of guys that you have to be yourself and relax and just play the game.
Clarifications now. The stance for Eddie Lack and his hips and that relationship, Woodley, can you take me through that?
Yeah, there was, I felt at times, and there was a fair bit of honest back and forth. Like he almost an obsession with stance, not realizing just how bad that other hip was bugging him. But to the point where that was the focus all the time, was to be able to get into a stance rather than just playing the game. Tinkering with what that stance was like, trying to find a stance that allowed him to be explosive and athletic and efficient all at the same time. But almost obsessing with it. Again, from the outside, it felt like maybe obsessing with it a little too much. And listen, stance, I've written about this for Unmasked for NHL.com this year. Stance is the foundation. How you set up dictates your ability to move. And it basically dictates everything. Save execution, whether you can get to the ice, whether you have lateral movement, whether you can get rotation in your movements. Like your stance is your home base. And so it's important. But, like a lot of things, you can get carried away with anything in goaltending, as Robin Lehner told us. And I think for Eddie, it felt from the outside like there were times he was a little obsessed with that stance, and we've had honest conversations about that. And so it was interesting to hear that, hear him say that for him, a lot of it over the past couple of years was just trying to find one that allowed him to sort of survive that hip injury.
Amazing. It goes back to the Robin Lehner thing about angles. Like how do you get to that level with angles and figuring it out and keeping square? But a guy that's in the National Hockey League tinkering with a stance and trying to find a right stance. It's that blows my mind.
Tinkering with his stance in the playoffs against the Calgary Flames after he led the Canucks. Like a lot of people forget about this. I know it hasn't gone well since, but .921 save percentage got them into the playoffs when Ryan Miller had an MCL sprain late in the season. And in the playoffs, when things started going poorly, was actually tinkering with his stance on his own during the playoffs to try and get comfortable.
Wild. We think that they're so locked in, and like anybody else, there's moving parts there. Where is Eddie right now? Not physically, but career wise, and what's the road ahead look like?
Well, you heard it in the interview there. I think he's a little undecided. It probably depends on how this hip goes, how the recovery goes, what the opportunities are. I'm not sure, obviously, what the opportunities would be for him coming off this season, whether they might even be a two-way deal. He got one-way money last time, and how that would play into it. But obviously a guy, as he talked about, taking his real estate, doing courses while he was recovering from hip surgery and lying in that bed with that machine moving his leg. So doesn't mean he's necessarily going to move on right now, but he's certainly preparing for life after hockey.
He's got Dr. Ho things strapped up to him.
Oh, it's a lot more. I should have got him to take some pictures for us. Obviously, he'd moved on by the time we talked to him. I'll ask if he's got any pictures that we can throw on social media, because it's like Dr. Ho on steroids. I mean, we're talking about it's not just a little stimulation of the muscle. It's actually moving the leg up and down, and moving the leg around like like a mechanical leg almost. So I actually, I haven't seen it. I've had it described to me from several goaltenders who have been through it. Now that you planted that seed, I need to get a picture. So I'm going to get a picture, and we're going to put it on social media this week.
So there's the story of Eddie Lack, who is now trying to get through his hip surgery, and everybody else is thinking about moving on as well, and that revolves around new gear. And this is the launch season, and we have launched a new segment with our new sponsor, the Hockey Shop Source for Sports. And Woodley, it's time to look at the CCM eFlex 4 as we take everybody behind the curtain. You wanted to set this up a little bit before I throw to your segment and talking about the eFlex?
Well, I mean, we've all seen eFlex 4 in the NHL on Carey Price, on Pekka Rinne, on Jacob Markstrom here in Vancouver. I mean, on a lot of guys. eFlex 4 has been in the NHL since the start of this season. Hutch and I were at an event with CCM as early as last spring where we saw the new line. Yeah, so last February where we saw the new line in February of 2018. But now, last week, March 1st, they unveiled it to the rest of the world, what they call a lockdown lift in the industry. The gear itself won't be on the retail store till April 26th, but over those next 7 weeks, we can all take a look at what exactly it is. And I think, as we've pointed out on our social media channels, There are some differences in the retail pad from what you've seen in the NHL. Some of them just cosmetic, but some of them in terms of the strapping a little bit. There are some features that maybe nobody's talked about in terms of the new core and the lightweight. And so we're going to walk through that. We're going to go talk with Cam from the Hockey Shop Source for Sports in Surrey, and we're going to walk through all those features. We chose Cam, not just because the Hockey Shop Source for Sports is our new sponsor, but because these guys know. And so I talk about being in Montreal at these events with CCM. Cam does it too. Cam goes to Montreal for these events. Cam, who runs the goalie department at the Source for Sports in Surrey, Hockey Shop Source for Sports, has been to the Lefebvre factory. He knows the difference between the pads that are produced in the Lefebvre factory for NHL guys and the stuff that comes out for retail. He knows the line top to bottom. We've had him out in test gear. They've been on the ice, and they're able to sort of walk us through some of those nuances. As a matter of fact, they've got an article up at hockeyshop.com, thehockeyshop.com, that basically already has on-ice testing with eFlex 4. So a lot of people are out there seeing the features. They've actually sort of been able to see how these features are captured on the ice and how they manifest themselves on the ice, how they feel on the ice, which is the kind of stuff we're going to bring in our review. Cam's going to help us have a sneak peek at that.
So if you want to know everything about the CCM eFlex 4, you check out the Hockey Shop Source for Sports or thehockeyshop.com, just like Kevin Woodley did as we raised the curtain on CCM's latest line.
All right, so we're actually here at the Hockey Shop in Surrey with Cam. And actually, we had this, we weren't quite sure. We had your name written down. So you tell us now, seeing our listeners are going to get to know you, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Matwiv.
That's simple.
Very simple.
It's not spelled simple. Okay, we're just going to go Cam from the Hockey Shop for now. And we're going to talk about the eFlex 4 line. We're actually here in the goalie department of the Hockey Shop, which is an entire basement. And as you look around, like, this is goalie heaven. So we'll do some photos on social later. But for now, we're going to talk about eFlex 4. Lockdown lift was this week. So everybody's seen the pictures. You guys are the first ones I know that have a review out, actually, that have had the pads on the ice, had the gloves on the ice, tested this a little bit. Walk me through what you see as the key selling points as a retailer, the key features of this new line.
More so for the eFlex 4, I think that one of the biggest notes is definitely the weight difference between the pad. We've had a chance to weigh both an eFlex 3 and an eFlex 4, and we're talking about a full pound difference. Our eFlex 4 set that we have here, 34 plus 1, weighed in at 4.6 pounds off the top of my head, and then our eFlex 3 actually weighs in at 5.6. So it's quite a substantial difference. You can really notice the knee cradle is another big highlight, switching over to that same material that the P2 is actually using as well. The tight fit leg channel, again, it's just been more refined, more responsiveness out of the pad because of this.
That's the quick motion strapping. So a lot of these things, the quick motion strapping, the change in the core, sort of follow along the lines of the P2 in terms of cutting the weight. It's a thinner profile. It's lighter. It's a little more responsive through the strapping.
CCM really set out to catch up to the rest of the market, I would say, in that sense, with everyone else being, that sub 4.5 pound pad. CCM really puts their mark on it with this as well, like they did with the P2 originally. So really noticeable, really quick and responsive, which the eFlex series has been, touted as being, but even more so this year.
And the knee is the 3D molded knee landing area, which we saw debut on the Premier 2. And I got to be honest with you, in NHL locker rooms this year, seeing way more of it. This is an example of CCM building something at the retail level before it hits pro, and pro's now adopting it. Talked to Pekka Rinne about it. Price is one of the guys that had it for a long time. Bernier had it for a long time, but we're seeing other guys now ask for it in their pads. The biggest thing for the way it holds a knee pad when you land, the way it holds up over time, and in Pekka's case, he thought it just, because it didn't contain or didn't retain moisture or wetness during the game, he just felt like it was better overall. It looks like that's something that other guys are going to start looking for in pads.
Definitely, that stability in the butterfly in particular that can provide. It just sitting tall, not having to worry about any slip, especially when you're transitioning any movements, big selling feature for it.
New toe ties.
Yes.
On the eFlex 4. This is a big step for CCM, who have long been sort of, I don't want to say last bastions, but they were sort of last to adopt, and they had laces and everything up until this pad.
Traditionalist comes to mind.
Yeah, that, I mean, and hey, and there's value to that, but this is a departure for them. What was your guys' experience on the ice with this new toe tie system? It's an elastic system with a Velcro top, pretty easy to get on. What was the responsiveness like?
We'll call it similar to a pro lace because it's basically what it is. We find a lot of adoption happening across all brands at this. I mean, you're seeing it on Brian's pad, you're seeing it on the new 2X. It's definitely the way of the future, just in terms of connection, feel, response at that toe area, making sure that pad snaps back onto you, especially when you're transitioning out of a butterfly and moving into your next save. You can't get that response out of a set of laces.
Okay, another aspect of this pad that comes stock that is also slowly, maybe a little slower to be adopted in the NHL, but again, Pekka Rinne is a guy who's added it. Marek Mazanek was here with the Canucks, and he added it this year for the first time and noticed the difference. Speed skin. Now, I happened to be there when you tested it for the first time on the ice, and you had questions about whether, just how much of a difference it would make. But what was your experience firsthand when you tested it? I guess that would have been on the eFlex 3 for the first time.
That's correct. Yeah, I had my first chance at it, and honestly, it surprised me at how well it actually did slide, especially on a dry sheet of ice. It moved, it responded. I mean, it sounded a little weird at first. It almost sounds like weaved. Yeah.
And you know what? We're gonna after we finish here, we're gonna play a clip from Mazanek imitating the sound. He didn't know what corduroy pants were. I guess I'm old that I know what corduroy, but it's kind of like that sound that corduroy makes. And so we have Marek Mazanek on tape going.
That's pretty close to what it sounded like. Yeah.
Sound effects brought to you by Kevin Woodley. So you like that? It's now stock on it. I guess the one thing about launching the eFlex 4, and it comes out in late April.
Correct.
But you can start to take a look at the customizer. You can call Cam here at the Hockey Shop. You can go to thehockeyshop.com, read the review, see some photos, see what the differences are, see how they felt it responded on ice. You can also start talking to them about some of the custom features. The customizer this year, what I really liked about what they did, probably makes your job easy when it comes time to order custom. Did you see the little question mark box next to each spec on the website? So now rather than going through the spec sheet and seeing 6 different options on an e-cradle, recessed, non-recessed, all these things, you can actually click a picture and it'll show you what that actually looks like. I'm hoping that makes your job easier come custom order time.
So much more streamlined. I mean, these guys CCM has already been an innovator in the customizer with how simple it is to use, and adding that, they had it to a bit of a degree before. You had to click on a separate link and you kind of had 2 tabs open to kind of flip back and forth through custom specs. But now having it be able to highlight it a second you're actually doing it, it's huge. It definitely alleviates a lot of the, I wouldn't say silly questions, but what does this do? What does this do? What does this do? Well, now you can visually see it right off the bat.
Okay, and we're going to have you on over the course of the next month talking about what the process of ordering custom pads, not just from CCM, but from any company, and how you help sort of customers get through that process to make sure, at the end of the day, everybody has a good product, but not every product is for every goaltender. That's what I love about this position, whether it's at the NHL, Pee Wee to Pro. Everybody has personal preferences that are unique based on how they play, and the gear should match them. And I think that's what I've loved about coming to visit you guys over the years is you understand preferences in terms of style and how they translate to equipment. That a big part of the custom process, being able to talk guys through, like, if I want a stiff pad, are you talking me into an eFlex 4?
Not necessarily, but that really depends on, again, your specific needs and what your execution is going to be while you're playing the position. And that's what's really exciting about my job is that no one customer is the same, no one goalie is the same, and no one pad is the same either. So it's very exciting on my side to be able to identify those specific needs for everyone.
Okay, perfect. We'll get into that in detail with some different brands, like I said, over the next month or so. But for now, the one thing about having eFlex 4 out that can benefit consumers who maybe they're not worried about that pound. They've been hitting the gym, doing the big squats. They don't have to worry about a pad that's a pound lighter. eFlex 3 is on sale.
That's correct.
And what kind of discounts can they find? And again, thehockeyshop.com online. That page will be up with some of the highlights on some of the savings you can find. Limited stock, but a chance if you want to save $400 on a set of pads if the last model is good enough for you.
That's correct. It is exactly $400 on the pads in particular, which is fantastic. You're getting that pro pad for $400 less compared to everything else on the wall. That's for sure.
Speed skin on those as well in the eFlex 3?
So actually, funny story. Originally, when SpeedSkid came out for eFlex 3, I was very uncertain about it. I didn't know much about it. And I'm going to throw Matt under the bus here a little bit, but he didn't tell me too much about it either. So that said, I had ordered all of our stock sets without any speed skins, so you'll see regular Gen Pro on all of our sets.
Okay, but some people may like, again, traditionalists.
With the exception of, and they are noted on the website, I think there's 1 or 2 sets that are speed skin. They're just stock all white sets from CCM. They are clearly noted on the website.
Okay, and the other big difference, for those who are looking and are a little uncertain, obviously you've got the original model knee stack. You don't have the 3D molded knee stack. You don't have the quick motion strapping. You've got 2 sort of, synthetic leather straps, which help get the weight down. Like the eFlex 3 was significantly lighter than the eFlex 2. eFlex 4 is even lighter than that. But, again, a lighter pad and just a little more traditional feel for about $400 less.
Exactly. And honestly, again, if they're not picky about that weight, like you brought up before, you're not going to have a bad time. The way we spec'd out the knee cradle was to give it a little bit of a tighter fit in particular. That was just one of the specs that we liked at the time and what we chose. Other than that, we're still talking about a stock eFlex pad. So,
and the other difference too is you'll have to check the website to see what the differences are on blockers and gloves, but not much has changed in either of those things from eFlex 3 to eFlex 4 for CCM. So, if you're just looking for new mitts, you happen to like CCM mitts, there'll be an opportunity to save some money there as well.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect, Cam. The first of many, I hope, with The Hockey Shop, and thehockeyshop.com is the sponsors of In Goal Radio, presented by The Hockey Shop, source for sports. I enjoyed this. We're going to do this more often. Thanks, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Nice work, Woody and Cam. The customizer. I always go back to the customizer because do you guys not just go on there and just play around?
You can do it for hours. And I have to say, the first time I ever had the privilege of ordering some custom gear, it was really hard to do because, eventually you have to hit that button and lock yourself in. But it's just a whole lot of fun to go down the rabbit hole of designs. Yeah.
Well, and Hutch and I are kind of privileged because we were on that customizer a long time ago, picking the sets that will be tested for In Goal. So our sets are being built right now and should be here soon. The one thing, in terms of the customizer, there are like 2 parts to this. Like, one, ordering custom gear, and you don't have to be in Vancouver to do it. You can call the Hockey Shop and talk to a guy like Cam to walk you through it. That process and dialing it in, having a guy like that who understands the difference between, say, a recessed knee cradle and a non-recessed knee cradle. CCM, remember way back, and I've got a pad of his in my office. It was Reebok back then. It was, I believe it was the I can't remember which Premier 4,
P4.
the Luongo.
P4.
Yeah, the P4 line. I got an autographed Luongo P4 pad here in the office, and that was the line that changed everything for CCM. That was a line where instead of just this pad, they started unveiling all these different options, boot, sort of the depth of the boot break, the way the sort of, whether it's shallow or deep in terms of how it fit over the foot, the leg channel options, the knee cradle options, and all those things. Those are the kind of things where if you're not sure what the terminology means, a guy like Cam can help you walk through that process of ordering a custom set to make sure when it arrives, you're not going, this isn't what I thought it was. But I also give credit to CCM because their customizer right now, which is live, this is the first time. If you go on that customizer and when you're going through the order options, and that's, whether you want a center blocker or an offset blocker, an intermediate palm and a full-size glove, whether you want a game ready, a pro, or a practice glove in terms of what that padding looks like, there's a question mark, a little box with a question mark beside each one. Click on that question mark and a picture will pop up with explanations of what each feature is. So there's like 6 different knee cradle options. You push that question mark and you'll see a picture of what each one looks like. So just to make sure what you think in your mind is, example, a recessed knee cradle, you'll get to see it and be like, hey, that's the one that Carrie has. That's the one that I want.
And there's no dumb questions there. Call Cam, seriously, because you don't want to get something that you're not happy with. So clarify that with Cam at the Hockey Shop, source for sports.
Guys, just speaking of clarification, I think we're making an assumption here, and we've got a lot of folks who probably never gone through this process before, and you hear CCM has their customizer live, but let's just be clear that although the customizer runs through CCM, you do have to work with a retailer to make even the most custom order. Unless your name is Freddie Anderson, or, well, Sorry, I shouldn't have used that as an example. There's the wrong company. But I think we should be clear that that if you want to make a custom order, you are working with CCM's customizer, but you do have to go through one of the local retailers like the Hockey Shop to actually place that order for you. And I think that's probably a good thing because they can review it all with you as well.
thehockeyshop.com and the Hockey Shop source for sports. And when I was talking about the customizer, I was just talking colors. You guys took that a whole different angle. I spent hours just on getting my colors figured out.
I'd love to know how many different combinations you could possibly make between colors and features. That's a math exercise for somebody out there today.
What are your colors? What did you guys get?
Ours are all green and black based here for myself and my son because he plays in Nanaimo. Those are the local minor hockey colors, and Kevin got to take it a little bit wilder, I think.
Yeah, we got a little gray, sort of gray silver, a little bright blue, which is the in goal colors, and a little accented green. So,
why the green? Canucks?
No. I don't know why that's because the accented green it's actually probably more Seahawks than it is Canucks, to be honest with you. The one thing, I'm not complaining, but if CCM could add a neon green, that would be awesome.
Little 12th man logo at the top as well.
Absolutely.
Listener questions. We don't have time this week, but we do invite you to send it in. There's a lot of people coming through and passing past our front doors, and we're going to be able to connect with the various goaltenders in the National Hockey League. So listener questions, send us those to podcast@ingoalmag.com, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have time to run it this week because we talked too much, and Eddie is awesome and went pretty long himself. But we do have one answered that already in the can for next week. Thomas Grice is going to walk us through the art of baiting shooters.
Baiting shooters. That's a scary game that you play because if you're just not quite good enough, then you can look a little silly.
Oh, and we talked earlier about goalies changing things up to give shooters a different look. Is there anybody who changes it up more than Thomas Grice? This is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah, it is. And he talks about speaking of changing it up, I believe it was Chris Letang in the shootout against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
Never went down. Stayed on the skates, baby. Old school. And me and Hutch have seen that because we've been
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we've been at camps with him in the summer, and he mixes up as well as anyone. So he's a great guy, I figured, to talk to when we saw the question come through the desk about baiting shooters.
If you have a question to a National Hockey League goaltender or about goaltending in general, send us the email at podcast@ingoalmag.com. Our thanks to Robin Lehner for stopping by and having a conversation with Kevin Woodley, as well as to our sponsor, the Hockey Shop source for sports, thehockeyshop.com, and everybody out in Surrey, and Eddie Lack, Eddie the Stork. I never got the answer to Eddie the Stork. Why is his Instagram Eddie the Stork?
The nickname was the Stork coming out of Sweden. It was probably due to sort of length. I don't know if it had anything to do with long and gangly. We'll just go with that. I don't know if he's got a long neck or something, but I don't know. I really got to be careful. You heard him chirp me in the interview.
Yeah.
I can't chirp back. He's got video of a golf swing of mine that might be like the worst you've ever seen, and he's kind of just holding it hostage.
Well, you know what? I'm going to get in touch with them and make sure we release that with all the other stuff on social. Thanks to Kevin Woodley and David Hutchison from InGoal Magazine and InGoal Radio, the podcast as well. This has been a lot of fun. We're back at it. We're back rolling. The new gear is out, and we've got through with CCM, and the other manufacturers are coming down the line. So thank you guys, and you, the listener, for logging on, subscribing. Leave us your comments, your suggestions, and your feedback and your rating on the podcast as well. I'm Darren Millard. Keep your stick on the ice and your skates sharp. Thanks for listening to In Goal Radio, the podcast.